You've met dog breeders and reptile breeders, but have you ever met an ant breeder? Well, I don't think I would classify myself as an ant breeder per se, but I did manage to breed a colony of captive grown ants. Everyone wants to know, what happened? Did the experiment actually work? I'll show you the results, which I know will shock you. But first, welcome to another episode of The Ant Keeper, where I upload about all things ants related. If you find yourself enjoying this video, then subscribe. Your support really helps me out and I really appreciate it. Let's recap first. A few months ago, I was finally ready to try an experiment on two of our ant colonies. We had two queen ants that I found shortly after I created this channel, almost 2 years ago. These queens eventually grew into their own established ant colonies. As soon as they started to produce alates, which are reproductive males and females, it occurred to me I could potentially breed them together in some sort of imitation breeding tank, and maybe even create some fertile queens. Shower of thoughts, huh? For some reason, everything in this experiment actually worked as I imagined, instead of being a complete disaster like it normally is. In fact, almost straight away, we had one queen ant running around with a brand new egg. Could this be proof that we have successfully raised and bred queen ants? Several months have passed since that upload, with just over 20,000 people have watched it, which for a tiny YouTuber like me is mind-blowing. I still can't believe it. Thank you everyone for your support. So what happened to the queen ants that we bred together? Well, let me introduce you to some of them, starting from the smallest to the biggest colony that I guarantee will shock you. Here are the stage 2 experiment conditions. For the raising of these queens, the room temperature was a constant 24 to 26 degrees Celsius. The queen ants fed on woodies, which is a type of cockroach, and sugar water. I also never interrupted these queens to minimize stress, only checking on them for their bi-weekly feeding. I also kept them in pitch darkness away from a heat cord and from disturbance. All of these are key ingredients to optimize the success for these queen ants. First, we have 3 queen ants with no brood. It's possible these are fertile queens, but probably unlikely. It's hard to say with any real certainty. Let me explain. It's currently winter here in Australia, so virtually all of our queen ants are not laying eggs. Just on that, for some reason I haven't quite worked out yet, I'm getting distracted here, but I'm going to tell you anyway. Winter is the time we typically have a die-off from some of our weaker queens in colonies. I'm not really sure why. As I said before, the ant room is heated between 24 to 26 degrees Celsius all the time, so it's quite warm here in the ant room. Within about 2 weeks of filming the breeding ants video, most of the queens started to drop off and die, likely because they weren't fertile. Since then, the queens that didn't die off straight away have all survived and began to lay eggs at considerably different dates, and the amount of growth has varied substantially. We'll talk more about that in a moment. I think if these queens have survived this long and that it's winter, it's possible that they could still lay eggs sometime in the future. Next up, we have one queen that has broods but no workers. She started laying her first batch of eggs about 3 weeks ago, several months after breeding. She's slow going but eats like a champ, and I think she'll eventually get there. For fun, since we had so many queens to begin with, I decided to pair up 2 sets of dual queens to see how they would go in the next stage of this experiment. They both have done okay. The smaller pair of the 2 has brood but no workers. Only one of these queens is laying eggs, although I don't know which one yet. This pair has actually laid eggs once before, but all the larvae died. It's not really that uncommon to happen, but it's worth mentioning for the sake of the experiment. Most ant species don't seem to tolerate having 2 queen ants, so at some point it's possible that one of these queens will get outcasted by the colony and be dismembered and eaten alive. Or maybe not. I don't actually know for the species, I'll guess we'll find out together. Joining us here is the second dual queen pairing. They have brood and a drone. Strange, right? Well, as far as I'm aware, if a colony produces a drone, then this indicates that these queens are not fertile. Although I have once seen online a queen producing drones and workers right from the very first batch of eggs. If anyone knows for sure, write down why we have a drone in the comment section below. I'd love to know. We have one colony left. Now, this colony is miles ahead of the others and for good reason. This queen started laying straight away. In the original video, there was a queen that was running around with her newly laid egg. This is that queen. Here is the last surviving queen with her 25 workers. It's crazy how this colony is doing so well compared to the others. Although this isn't the first time on this channel, we have seen massive growth difference between queens caught at the same time. You may remember our 2 Camponotus queens that we caught at my house using a black light are wildly different in colony size, despite being captured during the same nuptial flight. Also, I kept this queen on a heat cord from the very first day of her living in her test tube setup. This warmth helped promote growth of her brood, which has eventually resulted in the healthy colony we see now. This shows that hitting a colony can really make a difference in the speed of growth. AK colony? What do you think we should do with these colonies? Just so you know, there has been 3 fertile queens that I have given away to young aspiring ant keepers already. I don't normally do this because I have terrible time management, but these people were up and coming ant keepers I knew. With these queens and colonies, we have a few options. We could keep all of them, or we could keep some of them, or we could give them away or release them. Personally, I think it would be nice to let them go, since I have taken my fair share of queen ants from the wild, but I'll leave this up to you. It's worth mentioning that giving the ants away is not as simple as it would seem. There's a reason why I have never given away queen ants when we hit a subscriber milestone. In fact, whenever I give something away, a difficult challenge always seems to present itself. Legally, I can't export an ant to another country. I don't have the permit to do so because Australia has super strict importing and exporting laws, which means I can only give away an ant to someone who lives in Australia, which 90% of you watching this video are not. Let me know in the comment section below what you think we should do with these queen ants. If you made it this far, then make sure to hit the like button if you enjoyed this video. It really helps me out. Also, if you subscribed and become part of the AK colony, if you haven't, then what are you waiting for? Like, come on, what are you doing? Subscribe and be a part of one of the fastest growing colonies here on YouTube. Thank you everyone for watching this episode of The Ant Keeper. I'll see you on the next video. Until then, Ant Keepers Unite.